May 14, 1986. Johnny Carson sat across from Charles Grodin on The Tonight Show, laughing at another one of Grodin's trademark difficult guest routines. The audience was loving it. The cameras were rolling perfectly. Everything was going exactly as planned until Grodin leaned forward, dropped the comedy act completely, and said 5 words that changed everything. "Johnny, I can't do this." Carson's famous smile vanished. What happened in the next 18 minutes exposed a truth about fame that Hollywood had been desperately hiding for decades. A truth so devastating that it would force Johnny Carson himself to admit something on live television he had never told anyone. But here's what nobody knew that night. Charles Grodin hadn't planned to say any of it. Something had happened to him just 3 days earlier that broke him completely. And what he was about to reveal wouldn't just shock the audience, it would cause Johnny Carson to do something he had never done in 24 years of hosting. Stop the show entirely and walk off camera. The Tonight Show was the most powerful platform in America in 1986. 15 million people watched every single night. Getting on that couch meant you had made it. You were somebody. You had achieved the American dream. Charles Grodin had been on that couch 17 times before. The 51-year-old character actor was known for 2 things. His brilliantly uncomfortable comedy style and his ongoing feud with Johnny that audiences couldn't get enough of. He would show up, pretend to be annoyed about something trivial, and Johnny would play the exasperated host trying to manage an impossible guest. It was performance art disguised as an interview. That night was supposed to be no different. Grodin was there to promote his new film. The pre-in had gone smoothly. The producers knew exactly what bits they were going to do. Fred Dordover, the legendary producer, was in the booth ready to time everything perfectly. 8 minutes in, Grodin was right on script. He complained about his dressing room. He made a passive-aggressive comment about the booking process. Johnny played along perfectly and the audience laughed on cue. Then Johnny asked a simple question. "So, Charles, you've been in this business for 30 years. Does it feel as good as you thought it would?" And something in Charles Grodin's face just broke. What he said next wasn't part of the act. And Johnny Carson knew it immediately. "Stay with me because what happens when that mask comes off will shake you to your core. Hit that like button if you're ready for the truth." Grodin stared at Johnny for what felt like an eternity. The studio audience waited for the punchline. It didn't come. "No, Johnny," Grodin said quietly. "It doesn't feel good at all." The laughter stopped. You could hear the camera operators shifting nervously. "This wasn't the bit. I've spent 30 years chasing this," Grodin continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Chasing recognition, chasing success, chasing the feeling of mattering." Johnny's smile faded. He leaned forward slightly, his entertainer's instinct sensing something real was happening. "And you know what I discovered 3 days ago, Johnny?" Grodin's eyes were starting to glisten. "It's all been a lie." The audience was dead silent now. Fred de Cordova's voice crackled in Johnny's earpiece. "Johnny, what's happening? Is this planned?" Johnny pulled out his earpiece and set it on the desk. His full attention was on Charles. "What happened 3 days ago?" Johnny asked, and there was genuine concern in his voice. Grodin took a shaky breath. "I went to my daughter's college graduation. She's 22, beautiful, brilliant, everything a father could hope for." He paused, fighting back emotion. "After the ceremony, we went to dinner. Just the 2 of us, and she said, 'Dad, I'm so glad you could make it. I know how busy you are being famous.'" Another pause. The audience leaned forward. "And I realized, Johnny, she doesn't know me. My own daughter doesn't actually know who I am. She knows Charles Grodin, the actor. Charles Grodin from the movies. Charles Grodin from The Tonight Show." His voice cracked. "But she doesn't know Charles. Just Charles. I asked her, 'What's my favorite food?' She didn't know. What was my childhood like? She didn't know. What do I do when I'm alone and nobody's watching?" Grodin looked directly at Johnny, tears now visible. She couldn't answer a single question. "Johnny, because I've been so busy being famous that I forgot to be her father. I forgot to be a person." Johnny Carson sat completely still. For the first time in 24 years, He had no joke ready, no smooth transition, no way to lighten the moment because Charles Grodin had just exposed the one thing fame costs that nobody talks about. And Johnny knew exactly what he meant. Don't go anywhere. What Johnny admits next will change how you see success forever. Drop a comment if this is hitting different. Johnny looked down at his desk. When he looked back up, his eyes were different. The performance was gone. Charles, Johnny said slowly. I've been married 4 times. The audience stirred. Johnny never talked about his personal life ever. For marriages, for failures, and you want to know why they all ended? Grodin nodded, understanding they were in uncharted territory together. Because I gave everything to this show. Everything to being Johnny Carson, the Tonight Show host, and nothing to being John, the husband. John the father. John the actual human being. His voice got quieter. My sons. I don't really know them, Charles. They grew up while I was in the studio making America laugh. And now they're grown men, and I'm essentially a stranger who sends birthday cards. The camera operators were frozen. This wasn't supposed to be happening. You know what's terrifying? Johnny continued. I'm 60 years old. I've had the most successful career in television history. I've interviewed every important person of our generation. I've made millions of people laugh. He looked directly into the camera. And I'm lonely. Desperately, crushingly lonely. Fred Dordova's voice came through the studio speakers. Johnny, we need to cut my mic in the booth, Fred, Johnny said firmly. Just give us a minute. The audience sat in stunned silence. This was the Johnny Carson, the untouchable, unflappable king of late night. Admitting to being lonely on live television, Grodin spoke. That's what fame does, isn't it? It puts you on a pedestal so everyone can see you, but pedestals are designed to keep people at a distance. You can be seen by millions and known by no one. Yes, Johnny said simply. That's exactly it. I can't sleep anymore, Johnny. Grodin confessed. I lie awake at 3 o'clock in the morning and I think about all the moments I missed. All the little league games, all the parent-teacher conferences, all the bedtime stories I never read because I was on a film set being somebody impressive. He wiped his eyes. And for what? So strangers can recognize me at restaurants. So I can be introduced as the famous Charles Grodin at parties. Success has given me everything except the only things that actually matter. And that's when something unprecedented happened. Something that would make headlines across America. Keep watching. The next 60 seconds will expose why fame is the loneliest addiction in the world. Subscribe so you never miss these powerful true stories. A voice from the audience broke through. Mr. Carson, I need to tell you something. Security started moving, but Johnny held up his hand. Let them speak. A man in his mid-30s stood up. He was wearing a suit, clearly had come from work. My name is David. I'm a corporate attorney and I'm not famous. I'm nobody important. Everyone's important, Johnny said gently. But here's the thing, David continued, his voice shaking. I understand exactly what you're both saying. Because I've been chasing success my entire life, partner at the firm. Big house, nice car, all the external markers that I've made it, he paused. And last month, my 8-year-old son drew a picture at school. It was supposed to be our family. My wife was in it. My daughter was in it. Our dog was in it. The audience held its breath. I wasn't in it, Mr. Carson. My own son forgot to draw me because I'm never there. I'm always at the office chasing the next promotion, the next case, the next achievement. Tears streamed down David's face. I'm not even famous, and I'm making the exact same mistake you are. Johnny stood up from his desk. In 24 years, he had never done this mid-inter. He walked over to the edge of the stage closer to David. What's your son's name? Johnny asked. Michael, David whispered. David, promise me something, Johnny said. Promise me that tomorrow you leave work early. You go home and you ask Michael to draw a new picture. And this time, you make sure you're in it. David nodded, unable to speak. Then Charles Grodin stood up, too. Johnny, can we open this up? Can we just talk to people for a minute? Johnny looked at Fred through the booth window. Fred shrugged. They were so far off script it didn't matter anymore. How many people here? Johnny addressed the entire audience. Have sacrificed relationships for success? Have missed important moments chasing achievement? Raise your hands. Slowly, tentatively, hands started going up. First a few, then dozens. Then over half the studio audience had their hands raised. My God, Grodin breathed. We're all doing it. And that's when Johnny Carson made a decision that would change everything. What happens next will bring you to tears, I promise. Hit that like button if this is resonating with you. Fred, Johnny called to the booth. Cancel the rest of the show. We're staying right here. For the next 12 minutes, The Tonight Show became something it had never been real. Johnny and Charles didn't return to their seats. They stayed standing talking directly with the audience. A woman in her 50s shared, I'm a surgeon. I save lives. But I missed my daughter's wedding because of an emergency surgery. She says she understands, but I can see it in her eyes. I can see that I heard her. A young man, maybe 25. I'm an aspiring actor. I moved to LA 3 years ago. I haven't spoken to my parents in 6 months because I'm too busy networking, auditioning, chasing the dream. And I just realized, what's the point of achieving the dream if everyone you love becomes a stranger? Charles Grodin addressed him directly. That's the trap. We think we have to sacrifice everything to make it, but making it means nothing if you're alone at the top. Johnny added, I've been at the top for 24 years, and I can tell you the view is spectacular, but it's cold up here. It's so cold. An elderly man stood up. I'm 78 years old. I was a successful businessman. Built a company from nothing. Retired 5 years ago. His voice trembled. And you know what I think about every single day? Not the deals I closed. Not the money I made. I think about my granddaughter's dance recital that I missed when she was 7. She's 25 now. And I would give every dollar I ever made to go back and watch that recital. The studio was crying now. Not polite tears, deep cathartic sobs from people confronting truths they'd been avoiding for years. Johnny walked back to his desk and sat down. Charles sat back on the couch. Charles, Johnny said, thank you for having the courage to stop performing tonight, to just be real. Thank you for joining me, Grodin replied. I came here terrified of what would happen if I dropped the mask. And instead, I found out I'm not alone. None of us are alone, Johnny said to the camera. We're all fighting the same battle between who we are and who we think we need to be to matter. But here's what nobody watching that night knew. This conversation was about to save someone's life. Stay until the end. The aftermath of this moment will restore your faith in humanity. Comment below if you've ever felt this way. The moment the show ended, something unprecedented happened. The NBC switchboard received over 40,000 calls in 3 hours. But these weren't typical viewer responses. These were confessions. People called to admit they'd been pretending. To say they were lonely despite their success. To confess they'd forgotten who they were while becoming who they thought they should be. Mental health crisis lines across America reported something they'd never seen. A surge not in crisis calls, but in people finally asking for help. I don't know who I am anymore, but I want to find out. Became the most common phrase counselors heard that night. But the most profound impact was on 3 specific people. David, the attorney from the audience, kept his promise. He left work early the next day. He asked his son Michael to draw a new family picture. And this time, David was in it right in the center holding Michael's hand. David later wrote to Johnny, that picture is framed on my desk now. It reminds me every single day what actually matters. I made partner last year, but that's not my greatest achievement. My greatest achievement is that my son knows who I am. Charles Grodin flew home to his daughter immediately after the show. They spent an entire weekend together. No cameras, no performance, no Charles Grodin, the actor. Just a father and daughter finally talking honestly. In his memoir published years later, Grodin wrote, that show appearance saved my relationship with my daughter. We had been strangers performing the roles of family. That night gave us permission to stop performing and start actually being family. But the person most changed by that night was Johnny Carson himself. 2 weeks after that episode, Johnny did something he'd never done. He took a month off. No substitute hosts, no reruns, just a sign that said, "Johnny spending time with his family. He'll be back." When he returned, he was different. Still funny, still brilliant, but there was something more authentic about him. He talked about his sons occasionally, mentioned his struggles, let people see beyond the performance. In his final Tonight Show episode in 1992, Johnny said, "The night Charles Grodin and I stopped pretending on this stage was the night I finally understood what this show was really for. Not to entertain, but to connect. To remind people they're not alone." And the ripple effects of that 18-minute conversation are still being felt today. Almost there. The final lesson will change how you think about success forever. Make sure you're subscribed for more stories like this. That Tonight Show episode became the most requested recording in NBC's archive. Therapists showed it to clients struggling with authenticity. Business schools used it to teach about the true cost of success. Parents played it for their children as a warning about chasing the wrong things. Dr. Jennifer Matthews, a psychologist specializing in achievement and identity, wrote in her 2003 book, What Carson and Grodin Exposed that night was the central crisis of modern life. We're so focused on becoming successful that we forget to become ourselves. We optimize for achievement and accidentally delete our humanity. The truth Charles Grodin exposed wasn't just about fame. Fame was just the most extreme version of a trap we all fall into. We think success means recognition, achievement, status, being impressive to strangers. But success without connection is just expensive loneliness. Achievement without authenticity is just a performance that never ends. Status without substance is just an empty pedestal. Johnny Carson's smile faded that night, not because something went wrong, but because something necessary was happening. Two men were having the courage to admit that they'd climbed the mountain only to discover they'd climbed the wrong one. And in that admission, they gave millions of people permission to stop climbing and start living. The question isn't whether you're successful. The question is, does anyone actually know you? Not your achievements, not your titles, not your performance. You. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel. For more true stories about the moments when television told us truths we desperately needed to hear. Share this with someone who's sacrificing their real life for an impressive fake one. And comment below. What would the people who love you say you've sacrificed while chasing success? Because that answer might be the most important thing you discover today.